I'm Amy from Doodle Dog Designs. Today I'm going to make some primitive bunny bowl fillers. I've sketched this bunny pattern. To make this bunny bowl filler, I'm going to use some muslin fabric. It's very economical and easy to find. I'm going to create a crackle finish, so I'm going to use this crackle medium. And then I'm going to use 2 different colors of craft paint. So I'm going to take the cutout bunny pattern and place it on top of the piece of muslin, and I'm just going to trace around. And this tracing line will be my sewing line. Then I will just cut a rectangle out around the bunny. I just want to make sure I leave enough room for seam allowance. And then I'll place it on top of the muslin here and cut another rectangle the same size. So that will be my back, and this will be my front. I'm going to pin the 2 pieces together. And then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch all the way around. I'm going to leave the bottom open for turning. Okay, I have stitched all the way around, and now I'm going to use my pinking shears to cut all the way around. I want to leave about 1/4 inch of seam allowance all the way around. And then a little bit longer of a seam allowance on the bottom here. Then I'm going to use the regular scissors and clip a notch in this inner ear area here, so I get right up close to the stitching, but I don't want to cut through the stitching. And I'm going to do the same thing at these inner corners here around his face, and that will make it easier to get the shape right when I turn it. So now I'm going to turn the bunny right side out, and I just have a little dowel rod that came with my package of stuffing that I use to help turn things when I'm making a stuffed figure. It's got a pokey end and a flat end. You just want to be careful when you're using it not to poke too hard. You can accidentally poke all the way through. Then I'm going to press this with my iron to get the seams a little bit flatter. You can skip the ironing step if you want to. Now I'm going to stuff the bunny with some polyfill type stuffing. When you're stuffing something small and skinny like the ears, it's best to just use little sections of fiberfill at a time. You don't want to try to stuff a great big glob in there all at once. And this stick again is very useful for getting the stuffing up in there. If your stuffing didn't come with a dowel rod, you can also use a pencil. Be careful that you don't push too hard and poke a hole in your seam or your fabric. After you have it stuffed like you like it, you can use the line on the bottom there from drawing the pattern. Use that as where you turn it under. You just want to turn it under right along that edge. I think I have too much stuffing. And both sides, and here you could either hand sew the bottom closed, or you could take it back to the sewing machine and sew it closed. If you sew it closed, you're going to have a little bit of a seam right here. If you really wanted a primitive look, you could also, don't use the pinking shears on the bottom and just leave it straight, and you could just sew straight across there and leave the bottom so that it will ravel. I'm going to hand sew mine closed. So I've made 3 bunnies, and I want to give them a crackly appearance, And how the Crackle Paint works is you paint a base coat, and then you paint the Crackle medium, and then you paint the top coat, and the top coat will kind of crack and it will show the bottom coat through that. So I want one of the bunny to have this brown paint as the top coat, and then the other two I want to have this antique white as the top coat. So for the base coat, I'm going to paint 1 antique white and 2 brown. I'm using Folk Art Burnt Umber for the brown. Done another tutorial here on YouTube where I painted some carrot bow fillers. I used muslin for them also, and then I painted them with an orange paint. I'll put a link to that tutorial in the description below. I think painting on fabric is a fun way to create a craft. It just gives it a different texture and look than just a plain fabric project. I have not done the Crackle Paint before on fabric, so I'm hoping that it works the way that I want. The first coat of paint on the bunnies is dry. Now I'm going to apply a coat of the Crackle medium. That came out really fast and I made a big old mess. I'm going to paint the Crackle medium on the bunnies. Then I'll just set each bunny aside to dry after I get it painted. Coat of Crackle medium has dried now, so I'm going to add my top coat to the bunny. You can see already as it starts to dry, it starts to get little cracks in the paint. I'm loving how these turned out. They're nice and crackled. They have a nice aged look. Now I'm going to add some features to the bunny's faces. I'm using some button thread and I've put a single knot in the end of it. And I'm going to come up through the neck area where I'm going to put a ribbon later on the back side. And then I'm going to come out on the front where I want an eye to be. And the knot will be back there, but when I put a ribbon around his neck, that will cover it up. And I'm going to do a French knot for an eye. And then when I come back up, I'm going to come back where I want the other eye to be. And then I'll make another French knot. Then I'm going to come back up right here in the middle for a nose. And then I'm just going to make an X for the nose. You can be a little bit hard to sew through this painted fabric, but if I did this before, then the features would be painted over and you wouldn't be able to see them. After I get done with the nose, I want to come back and end in the back here in the same place that I started. And then I can tie that off in the back. I'm going to do the same thing with the brown bunny, but I'm going to use some cream colored thread instead of black thread. For the bows around their necks, I used some cheesecloth that I had coffee dyed, and I cut it into thin strips and tied it around the necks. I've got a little sprig of Sweet Annie here, and I'm just going to tuck that in under the tie and then tighten that back up. To give him a little bit of color. It also smells really good. Move his knot to the other side. Be sure to click the like button and subscribe below. I'll see you next time. Bye.